In Thailand, spirit houses stand outside nearly every home, and business small shrines built to honor the spirits of the land. They're treated with reverence, given daily offerings of flowers, incense, and food. These aren't just decorations, they're protection, they're contracts, and breaking that contract, well, some mistakes can't be undone. This is the story of a man who learned that lesson too late. If you are enjoying this video and want to see more in the future, please like, subscribe, and share with friends and family members who'd also enjoy it. This way, I can continue to bring you additional videos for free. Thank you and enjoy. Niran had always dismissed his grandmother's warnings about the spirit house behind their family's restaurant in Chiang Mai's Old Quarter. The weathered wooden structure, perched on a tall pillar near the kitchen's back entrance, had been there for 3 generations. His Yai insisted that fresh offerings must be placed there every morning before sunrise. Jasmine flowers, incense, and a small cup of sweet Thai tea. Never miss a day, she would say. Never. But Yai had been dead for 2 weeks now, and Niran was exhausted. At 28, he'd inherited not just the restaurant, but also the cramped apartment above it, the mounting debts, and the endless stream of tourists demanding pad thai at all hours. The morning ritual felt like one obligation too many. Just superstitious nonsense, he thought, as he rushed past the spirit house at 6 a.m., ignoring its empty offering tray for the 7th day in a row. That evening, something felt wrong. The restaurant was unusually quiet for a Friday night. Niran stood behind the counter, watching rain hammer against the windows, turning the narrow suah into a river of reflected neon.
That's so
Only
good.
2 tables were occupied, a young Western couple sharing tom yum soup, and an old man in the corner who'd been nursing the same glass of water for over an hour. Niran had never seen the old man before. He sat perfectly still, his face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, shoulders draped in a faded fakao ma cloth that smelled of temple incense, even from across the room. Something about him made Niran's skin crawl, but he couldn't say why. At 9 p.m., the Western couple paid and left. The old man remained. "Sir," Niran called out in Thai, then English. "We're closing soon." The man didn't move, didn't acknowledge him at all. Niran approached the table, irritation mounting. "Excuse me, The man's head tilted up slowly, and Niran saw his face. Or rather, he saw what should have been a face. The features were their eyes, nose, mouth, but they seemed to shift and blur like a reflection in disturbed water. Niran blinked hard, certain he was seeing things from exhaustion, but when he opened his eyes, the man was gone. The chair sat empty, the glass of water undisturbed. A cold dread settled in Niran's chest. He locked up quickly and climbed the narrow stairs to his apartment, trying to shake the image from his mind. Just tired, he told himself. Just missing Yai. The grief playing tricks. But that night, he dreamed. In the dream, he stood in the restaurant's kitchen. It was dark, except for the pale blue light filtering through the back door's window. The spirit house outside glowed with an unnatural luminescence, and he could hear something scratching at the door. Slow, deliberate scrapes, like fingernails on wood. "You forgot us," a voice whispered. 7 days without offerings. 7 days of disrespect. Niran woke gasping, his sheets soaked with sweat. The apartment was freezing despite the tropical heat outside. And then he heard it, the same scratching sound from his dream, coming from downstairs. He grabbed his phone and crept down the stairs, his heart hammering. The restaurant was dark, illuminated only by the streetlights outside. Everything appeared normal until he reached the kitchen. The back door was open.
Oh,
Niran
no.
knew he'd locked it. He always locked it. But now it stood ajar, and the spirit house outside was dark and empty, its offering tray overturned on the ground. The jasmine flowers Yai had placed there 2 weeks ago had rotted into black slime. A sound behind him made him spin around. The old man from earlier stood in the kitchen doorway. But now Niran could see him clearly, and what he saw made his bladder almost give out. The man's face was decomposing, flesh hanging in strips from the bone. His eyes were hollow sockets filled with writhing darkness. The fa khao ma wasn't cloth at all. It was woven from human hair. 7 days, the thing said in a voice like grinding stone. 7 days you ignored us. Now you must pay the debt. Niran ran. He crashed through the kitchen, knocking over pots and pans, and burst into the dining area. But the restaurant had changed. The walls were covered in mold, the furniture rotted and ancient, and sitting at every table were them dozens of spirits, each one more horrifying than the last. Some were missing limbs, others had skin that dripped like melted wax. One was just a torso dragging itself across the floor with skeletal hands. They all turned to look at him. The spirit house was a bargain, the old man said, now standing behind the counter where Niran had been just hours ago. Your great-grandfather made a deal with the Pai who dwell here. Daily offerings in exchange for prosperity. Your family grew rich feeding us, but you broke the agreement. I didn't know, Niran screamed. I didn't believe. Belief is irrelevant. The contract remains. The spirits began to rise from their seats, moving toward him with jerking, unnatural movements. Niran backed against the wall, his mind fracturing with terror. What do you want? He sobbed. The debt must be paid. 7 days missed. 7 offerings owed. The old man smiled, revealing teeth made of rusty nails. But we no longer want jasmine and tea. What then? I'll give you anything. We want what was always meant for us. Your great-grandfather promised us, should the offerings ever stop, we could claim what we truly desire. The old man's hollow eyes fixed on Niran. We want the living, 1 soul for each day missed, starting with yours. The spirits lunged forward. Niran felt cold hands grab his arms, his legs, pulling him down. He screamed as they dragged him toward the kitchen, toward the open back door, toward the spirit house that now seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Then suddenly, light flooded the room. Niran found himself back in his bed, morning sun streaming through the windows. His phone alarm was blaring. 6 a.m. He sat up, gasping, his clothes dry, the apartment warm. A dream. It had all been a terrible dream. But when he looked at his hands, he saw dirt under his fingernails, and his feet were muddy. Heart racing, Niran ran downstairs. The restaurant looked normal. The kitchen was clean, but the back door was unlocked. And when he stepped outside, he saw fresh offerings at the spirit house. Jasmine flowers, burning incense, and a cup of tea that was still warm. Someone had made the offering for him, but he lived alone. On the offering tray, beneath the flowers, was a note written in old Thai script. Niran could barely read it, but he understood enough. 6 more days. 6 more souls. Choose them, or we choose for you. That day, 3 tourists who ate at his restaurant died in a tuk-tuk accident 2 blocks away. The next day, the motorcycle taxi driver who made regular deliveries for Niran crashed into a truck. The day after, the elderly woman who sold vegetables at the market and always greeted Niran with a smile was found dead in her home. her face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. The spirits were collecting their debt, taking people from Niran's life. And each morning, he would wake to find fresh offerings already placed at the spirit house, though he never made them himself. On the sixth night, Niran couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed a hammer and went outside, determined to smash the spirit house to pieces. But as he raised the hammer, he heard Yai's voice, clear as if she were standing beside him. "The house isn't the prison, Niran. It's the door. Destroy it, and they'll be free to take everyone." He lowered the hammer, tears streaming down his face. That night, the old man appeared in his dreams again. "One debt remains," he said. "One soul owed. But we give you a choice. Offer someone else, someone you choose, or we take you instead. Decide by sunrise." Niran spent the night in agony. He thought of his best friend Somchai, his ex-girlfriend Ploy, his cousin Lek. Could he condemn any of them to save himself? What kind of person would that make him? As dawn approached, he made his decision. At 5:45 a.m., Niran walked outside and knelt before the spirit house. He lit incense, placed fresh jasmine flowers, and poured tea with shaking hands. Then he spoke aloud. "I offer myself. Take me instead. But please, let this be the end. Let my family be free of this curse." The air grew cold. The old man materialized before him, solid and real in the dim morning light. "An offering of self," he said, tilting his decomposing head. "Unusual, but acceptable." He reached out a skeletal hand. Come in." Niran took the hand. It was ice cold and felt like touching death itself. But as the old man pulled him forward, something unexpected happened. The spirit house began to crack, pieces of wood falling away. Light poured from within it, not the cold blue of spirits, but warm golden light like temple candles. "What?" Niran gasped. "The curse was never just about offerings," the old man said, and his voice had changed, becoming softer, almost sad. "It was about sacrifice. Your great-grandfather promised us prosperity through theft and trickery, but a willing sacrifice given freely that can break any curse." The spirits began to appear, all of them, surrounding Niran. But they were different now, their faces peaceful, their forms becoming translucent. One by one, they bowed to him and faded like morning mist. The old man was the last to go. "Thank you," he whispered. "We were trapped too, bound by your ancestors' greed. You freed us all." And then he was gone. Niran collapsed on the ground, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. When he finally looked up, the spirit house had vanished completely. In its place was just an empty pillar, and carved into it were words in Old Thai. "The debt is paid. The door is closed." But that night, as Niran lay in bed, something made him sit up in the darkness. He walked to his window and looked down at where the spirit house had been. There, standing in the shadows, was his grandmother. She smiled at him, placed a finger to her lips, and faded away. Niran never saw the spirits again, but every morning at sunrise, he places offerings in the empty space where the spirit house once stood, not out of fear, but out of respect. Because he learned that some traditions exist not to bind us, but to protect us from what lurks in the spaces between the living and the dead. And late at night, when the restaurant is quiet and the old quarter sleeps, he sometimes hears it, a soft scratching at the door. Not threatening, just waiting, reminding him that some debts, once paid, can still be called upon again.